Hello and welcome back, dear students. Wish you all stay happy, healthy, and safe at home and do your studies regularly and properly. I'm Yojna Parak, and today we are going to see a chapter for Standard 9 students from your English textbook, Moment, that is your supplementary reader. From this book, we are going to see the fifth chapter. Name of this chapter is The Happy Prince, written by Oscar Wilde. Why this chapter has been given such title? Because the complete chapter is about the prince who is known as the Happy Prince. Now we are going to see in this chapter that why he is called as Happy Prince and what good has he done, that is why we are reading about him. So that we will see in this chapter about the Happy Prince. So let us begin now. High above the city, on a tall column, stood the statue of the Happy Prince. He was gilded all over with thin leaves of fine gold. For eyes, he had two bright sapphires, and a large red ruby glowed on his sword hilt. Gilded, that means to covered with something or coating of something. The handle of weapon or tool, or specially sword, dagger, or knife, that is called hilt. So here, as he is the king, he must have sword, and it is the handle of his sword. Now, high above the city, on the tallest column, there stood a statue. There was a statue of the Happy Prince, and he was covered all over with thin leaves of fine gold. His eyes had two bright sapphires, and there was a large red ruby on his sword hilt, on the handle of his sword. Now you must be thinking that why the golden statue has been built for this Happy Prince on the tallest column of the city. Because when he was alive, he must have done something good for his people. That is why, for the memory of his good deed, they have situated that statue on the tallest column, as he is the prince of that town. And for the memories of his good deed, they have made this statue with fine gold, with pure gold, and have placed sapphire for his eyes, and one red ruby, a large red ruby, they have coated on his sword hilt. One night there flew over the city a little swallow. His friends had gone away to Egypt 6 weeks before, but he had stayed behind. Then he decided to go to Egypt too. All day long he flew, and at night time he arrived at the city where the statue of Happy Prince was situated. Where shall I put up? He said. I hope the town has made preparations. Put up, that means where to live for the night, and swallow, that is a tiny bird. So there was a little tiny bird who is known as swallow was flying over the city. His friends had gone to Egypt 6 weeks before, but he was stayed behind. Now he also decided that he will also go to Egypt to his friends. All day long he flew, but at night he got tired. And even in night the visibility is not that clear. So he thought that he should take rest. At that time he was flying over the city where the statue of that Happy Prince was situated. Now he says, where shall I put up? Where shall I rest for the night? I hope the town has made preparation. The writer has created humor by this line. Suppose when some guest arrive at our house, we will make some preparation for their stay, because they have came from a distant place and they will go back soon. Same way here, the swallow has came from a distant place and just for a night he want to stay there, and in the morning he will leave that place. So in this way he is the guest of that city. That is why he says that the town must have made some preparation for my stay. Then he saw the statue on the tall column. I will put up there, he cried. It is a fine position with plenty of fresh air. So he alighted just between the feet of the happy prince. Alighted, that is, descended, to come down. So now, when he was flying over the city and he wanted to take rest, and he was looking for the place to take rest, there he saw the statue on the tallest column of that city. And he said that yes, I will stay here because this position is fine for me and I will get plenty of fresh air here. So he came down and sat between the feet of the happy prince. I have a golden bedroom, he said softly to himself as he looked around, and he prepared to go to sleep. But just as he was putting his head under his wing, a large drop of water fell on him. What a curious thing, he cried. So when he decided that he will take rest at the feet of that golden statue, he sat between the feet and he was about to get sleep. But just when he was putting his head under his wings, a large drop of water fell on him. He became shocked and he was surprised. He asked to himself, what a strange thing! There is not a single cloud in the sky, and even the stars are clear and bright, yet it is raining. And then suddenly, the second drop fell on him. So he couldn't understand that from where these drops are coming. What is the use of a statue if it cannot keep the rain off? He said, I must look for a good chimney pot. And he determined to fly away. But before he had opened his wings, a third drop fell, and he looked up and saw. What did he see? Now, when he got annoyed, when the drops of water were falling on him, so he decided that he will leave that place. He said to himself that what is the use of this statue when this statue cannot keep me dry, cannot give me the shade, when this statue cannot keep the rain off, cannot keep the rain away. So I must look for a good chimney pot. Under the shade of that chimney pot, at least I can get the rest and I won't get wet. So he needed a shade and he thought that this statue cannot cover me, and because of this statue I am getting wet, so there is no use of that statue. So I should go to a chimney pot. Under the shade of the chimney pot I can take rest and I won't be wet. So he decided that he will fly away. But before he had opened his wings, another drop fell on him, the third drop fell on him, and he looked up and he was surprised at the sight. What did he see? Let us see. The eyes of the happy prince were filled with tears, and tears were running down his golden cheeks. His face was so beautiful in the moonlight that the little swallow was filled with pity. Who are you? He said. I am the happy prince. Why are you weeping then? Asked the swallow. You have quite drenched me. Drenched, that is, soaked with water. Now, when he was about to fly, the third drop of water fell on him and he looked up. And there he saw that the happy prince was crying. The statue of happy prince was crying. He had tears in his eyes, and the tears were running down over his golden cheeks. Why the word golden cheeks is used here? Because the whole statue was made of gold. And the face of that statue looked so beautiful in the moonlight. When the swallow saw him crying, he was filled with pity. He asked him, "Who are you?" The prince replied that, "I am the happy prince." So the swallow asked, "When you are the happy prince, why are you crying then? You have quite drenched me. You have get me wet." "When I was alive and had a human heart," answered the statue, "I did not know what tears were, for I lived in the palace, where sorrow is not allowed to enter. My courtiers called me the happy prince, and happy indeed I was. So I lived and so I died. And now that I am dead, they have set me up here so high that I can see the ugliness and all the misery of my city. And though my heart is made up of lead, yet I cannot choose but weep." Misery, that is sadness. So, when the swallow asked him that, "When your name is Happy Prince, why are you not happy? Why are you crying? Why are you unhappy?" So the king replied that, "When I was alive, now I am not alive, I am dead, but uh, his soul is in that statue." So he says that, "Now I am not alive, but when I was alive and I had a human heart, that time I didn't know about tears. I had never cried, for I lived in the palace, because I used to live in the palace and I had all those things whichever I wanted to make me pleased, to make me happy. The sorrow was not allowed to enter in my palace. I had always been happy and satisfied, delighted at the palace. That is why my courtiers used to call me the happy prince. And happy indeed I was. I was really happy. So I lived and so I died. I lived happily and I died happily. But now when I'm dead, they have set me up here on the tallest column, and from here I can look the ugliness. I can see the ugliness of this city. I can see the misery of this city, the sorrow, the sadness. And though my heart is made up of lead, yet I cannot choose but weep. Now I don't have human heart. My heart is made up of lead in this statue. But still, when I see the sadness, the sorrow, my lead heart also weep." So he had a good heart and he could not see others people's sorrow, others people's pain. So that is why he was crying. "What? Is he not solid gold?" said the swallow to himself. He was too polite to make any personal remark. At that time, he thought once that, "Oh, this statue is not made up of gold completely." But he did not make that remark because he knew that the prince was crying. It was not the right time to make such humor. So he himself said very politely, silently, that the statue was not made up of it was not made up of gold, and the statue had the heart of lead. But he did not say anything. "Far away," continued the statue in a low musical voice, "far away in a little street, there is a poor house. One of the windows is open, and through it I can see a woman seated at a table. Her face is thin and worn, and she has coarse, red hands, all pricked by the needle. for she is a seamstress. Coarse, that means rough, and seamstress, that is a woman who make a living by sewing. So the prince continued that far away in the little street there is a poor house. There is a house of poor woman, and one of the window of that house is open. Through the window I can see that a woman is sitting at a table, and her face is thin and worn. She has been tired, and her hands were rough and red because her hands were all pricked by the needle. And why her hands were pricked by needle? Because she was a seamstress. She used to make her living, she used to survive by sewing clothes. And while sewing, that needle pricked in her hand, and because of that she had rough red hands. She is very much tired and a poor lady. She is embroidering flowers on a satin gown for the loveliest of the queen's maid of honor to wear at the next court ball. In a bed in the corner of the room, her little boy is lying ill. He has a fever, and he is asking his mother to give him oranges. His mother has nothing to give him but river water, so he is crying. Swallow, swallow, little swallow, will you not bring her the ruby out of my sword hilt? My feet are fastened to this pedestal, and I cannot move. Sword hilt, that is the handle of the sword, and pedestal, that is raised platform, the tall column. She is embroidering flowers on the gown of the queen's maid of honor, and she will wear this gown in the next court ball. Ball is the dance form. So in the party at the court, the maid of queen is going to, the queen's maid of honor is going to wear this gown, and for her this seamstress is preparing that gown. In a bed in the corner of the room, her little boy is lying ill. He is not well. He has a fever, and he is asking his mother to give him some oranges. But his mother is so poor that she cannot afford, and that is why she is giving only the river water to him. That is why the boy is crying. And then the happy prince requests the swallow, 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 little swallow, will you not bring her the ruby out of my sword hilt? Please give that ruby from my sword hilt to that poor lady, because I cannot go there, but I want to help them. But my feet are tied to this pedestal on this tall column, so I cannot move and go there. Will you be my messenger, and will you do this work for me? By this you can guess that the prince was so kind that even after death he wanted to help his people. He could not see the pain, the sorrow of his people. I am waited for in Egypt, said the swallow. My friends are flying up and down the Nile and talking to the large lotus flowers. Soon they will go to sleep. The prince asked the swallow to stay with him for one night and be his messenger. The boy is so thirsty and the mother is so sad, he said. Now the swallow gave his excuses that my friends are in the Egypt. They are flying over the Nile and they are talking to the large lotus flowers. Nile is the river in Egypt. It is the largest river, and lotus is the national flower of Egypt. So they are in Egypt, the weather is warm, they are enjoying there. I also want to enjoy with them. Why would I stay here? But the prince requested Swallow to stay with him for just one night and be his messenger. And for for convincing him, he said that, see that the boy is so thirsty and the mother is so sad. See their pitiable condition and please stay with me for just one night and be my messenger. I don't think I like boys, answered the swallow. I want to go to Egypt. But the happy prince looked so sad that the little swallow was sorry. It is very cold here, he said. But he agreed to stay with him for one night and be his messenger. Thank you, little swallow, said the prince. Now the swallow did not want to stay there because he wanted to be with his friends. So he gave excuses that I don't think I like boys and I don't want to stay here. I don't want to help anyone. I just want to go Egypt. But when that swallow denied, the happy prince became so sad that swallow could not see his dull face and he felt sorry for his rude behavior. And he said that it is very cold here and swallow cannot stay in cold weather. But still, just to help that happy prince, the kind prince, he agreed to stay with him for one night only and to be his messenger. The king thanked the swallow for his kindness and for his help. Here you can also notice that the king was very much polite. The swallow picked out the great ruby from the prince's sword and flew away with it in his beak over the roofs of the town. He passed by the cathedral tower where the white marble angels were sculptured. He passed by the palace and heard the sound of dancing. Now the swallow agreed and he picked the ruby from the handle of Prince's sword and taking it in his beak, he flew over the houses, over the roof of the houses of the town. He passed by the cathedral tower, the church tower, and there were white marble angels sculptured on that church tower. And then he passed by the palace and he heard the sound of dancing. A beautiful girl came out on the balcony with her lover. I hope my dress will be ready in time for the state ball, she said. I have ordered flowers to be embroidered on it, but the seamstresses are so lazy. Now, the girl, the maid of honor of the queen, she came in the balcony with her lover and she said to him that I hope my dress will be ready for the state ball, for the dance. I have ordered flowers to be embroidered on my dress, so my dress will look more beautiful. But the seamstresses are so lazy that they do not complete the work within time. So I'm excited, but I'm also worried whether that seamstress will do her work or not. Here you can see the selfishness of her. She is not worried about that seamstress. She is only worried about her dress. He passed over the river and saw the lanterns hanging on the mast of the ship. At last he came to the poor woman's house and looked in. The boy was tossing feverishly on his bed, and the mother had fallen asleep. She was so tired. Tossing, that means turning left and right. Mast, that is flagpole. Here you can see in this image, at the top there is a flag. From that top, the swallow was looking towards the house of that poor woman. So after crossing the cathedral tower, he passed by the palace and then he passed over the river and saw the lantern hanging on the mast of the ship. At last, finally, when he crossed the river, he saw the poor woman's house and he looked in. The boy was still tossing. He was turning left and right feverishly in the fever. He was in pain. So he could not sleep, but the mother got so tired that she could not help but to sleep. So she had fallen asleep, but the boy was still awakened and was in pain. In he hopped and laid the great ruby on the table beside the woman's thimble. Then he flew gently round the bed, fanning the boy's forehead with his wings. How cool I feel, said the boy. I must be getting better. And he sank into a delicious slumber. Slumber, that is sleep. Sank, that means drawn. But here it means the boy is going to sleep. Thimble, that is a metal or plastic cap with a closed end, worn to protect the finger and push the needle in the sieving. Now, when the swallow saw the condition of the woman and the boy, he went inside the room and put the ruby on the table beside the woman's thimble. And then, when he saw the condition of that poor boy, he flew gently round the bed to give some fresh air to that boy and started fanning the boy's forehead with his wings. And the boy felt cool, he felt relieved, and the boy said, I must be getting better very soon. I will be recovered by this fever. I will recover from this fever. And he sank into a delicious slumber. And then he also fallen asleep by that cool air given by the swallow. Then the swallow flew back to the happy prince and told him what he had done. It is curious, he remarked, but I feel quite warm now, although it is so cold. That is because you have done a good action, said the prince. Now, when the swallow came back to the happy prince and told him what he had done, the swallow exclaimed that it is very strange and surprising that even the weather is cold, but I feel warm now. So the king replied, it is so because you did a good action, you did a kind act. That is why you are feeling warm from your heart. And the little swallow began to think and then fell asleep. Thinking always made him sleepy. When day broke, he flew down to the river and had a bath. Tonight I go to Egypt, said the swallow, and he was in high spirits at the prospect. Prospect, that means thought of something. So now he was thinking about the words of that happy prince and also about his kind act. But when he was thinking about that, he had fallen asleep. So the writer again make humor here that thinking always makes swallow sleepy. Then the next day broke, the new day began, and he flew down to the river and had a bath. He was sitting on the tallest column of the city, and then from there he went down to the river and took a bath. And he said to himself, tonight I go to Egypt. I will go to Egypt to meet my friends finally. And he was in high spirits at the prospect. He was thinking about what would be in Egypt, and he was very happy about that. So in this way, he was in high spirits. He was very much happy and delighted just by the thought that he will now go to Egypt and meet his friends. So now with this we come to an end of this video. Now the next part we will see in the next video. Till then, take care of yourself and be safe and keep on reading. Thanks for being with me. See you.